Good day, my name is Ovayom Kalipi and these are my colleagues, Mpo and Kamukhelo. Today we're going to introduce a new organizational system that seeks to replace the Eurocentric framework which is rooted in injustices. This new system is the Ubuntu net system, which is a worker-owned technology cooperative rooted in Ubuntu principles. The system that we have created is the Ubuntu net system, which is a worker-owned technology cooperative rooted in Ubuntu principles. It is where collective ownership, democratic decision-making, and dignity-driven practices replace the cooperative hierarchies. This system creates a just, inclusive, and sustainable workplace where employees or other workers feel included, feel at home, have a sense of belonging. Now, moving to the problems that we have identified in the traditional OB. These problems are the ones that we seek to address with this new system. Basically, the problems are the system that is Eurocentric. It is built on managerialist bias that treats organizations as neutral machines for profit maximization. This means that workers who produce the work are reduced to components to be optimized, controlled, stripping them of their dignity and humanity. This Eurocentric framework ignores the lived realities of the global South and perpetuates injustices. By introducing this new system, it will address this and dismantle these crises. Now, let's move to the how. How do this Eurocentric system, or rather framework, enforce these hierarchies of injustices? They do this through physical architecture. Physical architecture is the structure of the organization. This is done through corporate office layouts, which reproduce colonial hierarchies. Executives are in the private offices, while workers are in open plan spaces. The second part is surveillance and discipline. The Panopticon style monitoring enforces conformity, reducing labor to a performance of obedience rather than creativity. This means that there will be no innovation. Employees are not free to create their own thing. They are not free to bring new ideas in the business. The third one is the myth of professionalism. You have to dress in a certain way, speak in a certain way, groom in a certain way. These standards are coded as racial exclusion, especially in South Africa, because this forms, or rather forces, assimilation into a white man's world. Theories that we can critique about this Eurocentric system is racial capitalism. Capitalism and racism are inseparable, meaning that wage disparities and stratification stem from colonial, or rather colonization. Corporate personhood. Corporations claim human rights to evade regulation. This is in line with maximizing their profits while avoiding moral responsibility. The last one is worker subjectivity. Workers are not passive. They resist exploitation through strikes, negotiation, and sabotage. Resistance is political, not deviant. Now, I have finished my part, and I will pass it to Kamukhelo to elaborate further on our model, and why do we have this model, and how it adapts to the environment of South Africa.
So, picking off where my colleague left off over you, our Ubuntu Systems Alternative Organizational Model is a type of work-owned cooperative in the technological sector, where the structure that we use is the structure that we decentralize it from the Eurocentric and non-hierarchical network. Also, the ownership, we noticed that most of the models in this African thing, they take the Eurocentric models. So the decisions that we take they are rather in a collective rather than in executive. But also the physical environment is that like every worker is in the open flow layout, as my colleague said. Because we trust them, and also that we share knowledge while we're in the communal space. So when it comes to worker empowerment and fairness, also justice, we emphasize on worker subjectivity, where we take our workers as full humans and we treat them as people who have other things to do rather than always being at work and monitoring them 24 hours. Also, we are rejecting the ideal worker norm where they say with the workers don't have to have leaves. We give our workers leaves, and also we take their well-being into consideration, so that we don't care about only the profit but the workers' health. So when it comes to pay structures, we make sure we check the living wage guarantees that like they need to make a living for themselves, to pay their expenses and bills at the end of the month. We make sure with the surplus profits are shared equally among the co-owners, and the co-owners, remember, they are our workers. Also, when it is justice oriented, and the practices that we put in place for this justice orientated is the gender equality, racial inclusion, so that no one feels segregated or what do you call this thing, segregated or discrimination is involved. So the policies that we think they're gonna work in this module, because we are trying to make sure with everyone, every race, and every person or that works, or like an individual that works in our model, they are taken care of and they feel included in their organization as a whole. So we're gonna define the way we do things, because of we reject the Eurocentric dress codes, accent, grooming standards that exclude marginalized groups. Also, we use the Ubuntu principles, where we say with a person is a person because of a person, right? So rooted in African collectivism, emphasizing community benefits over corporate legal personhood thing, where they say a corporate is a legal person. As we do take it as a legal person, but also include the fact that we are people living in a community where we have to serve our community, also serve our workers. And when it comes to hiring people's new staff, so we make sure we put it on a practical contribution. We check if this person is there, are they fit. We don't look at the race that they come from or the background. We look at we look at the way they take their job seriously. And I'll leave it to my colleague.
Like my colleague Kamo related, we're going to firstly look at the implementation strategy. For a model like Ubuntu Net Systems to succeed, change cannot happen overnight. The transition must be gradual, and organizations would begin this process by increasing employee participation in meetings and decision-making processes. Workers would slowly move from being employees to becoming co-owners of the organization. Another key strategy is introducing equitable pay systems that reduces the gap between management and workers. Another major part of the strategy is creating a cultural shift within the workplace by embedding the Ubuntu values such as collaboration, respect, shared responsibility, and community well-being into everyday practices. Even though this model is promising, there are several challenges that may arise. One major challenge is leadership pushback, whereby the executives and shareholders may resist loss of control, as executives and shareholders who are used to traditional hierarchical powers are not used to the system and how it works. Another challenge is that democratic decision-making can sometimes be slower, as more voices need to be heard before decisions are finalized. There's also an issue of funding, as traditional investors may hesitate to support equity-focused models. Lastly, cultural resistance may occur, especially when Western management systems dominate and may clash with the Ubuntu-based organizational values. Despite the challenges, practical solution may be implemented. One solution that can be implemented is gradual change that allows organizations to demonstrate productivity gains for empowerment. Another solution is representative democracy, where workers elect representatives to make decisions more efficiently while still remaining accountable to the collective. Another one is finding alternative funding by seeking government support, community financing, and ethical investors. And lastly, education and training to build awareness of African-centered management strategies to overcome cultural resistance. In conclusion, our presentation has shown that traditional organizations' behavior often reinforces hierarchy, inequality, and profit-centered systems that overlook worker dignity. Ubuntu Net systems present a powerful alternative by promoting collective ownership, democratic participation, and fairness in the workplace. The model does not only change existing corporate systems, but also offers a sustainable and socially just way of organizing work, especially in the global south. Adding the suggested solutions into practice, we'll start by looking at the economic part of sustainability, focusing on the principle of profit sharing, ensuring fairness while maintaining competitiveness. The cooperative ownership models will be structured in a way by employees or community members hold shares in the organization, ensuring profit circulate local rather than being extracted. For example, a rural solar energy cooperative in Limpopo, whereby households both consume and co-own the infrastructure. Profits are reinvested into expanding access. In the social part of sustainability, the principle is going to be focused on worker dignity and empowerment to reduce burnout and turnover. This will ensure participatory decision-making, whereby workers are involved in strategic decisions, not just operational tasks. For example, a manufacturing plant whereby employees vote on a shift structures, balancing productivity with family responsibilities. In the cultural part of sustainability, the principle will be focused on Ubuntu principles first. Will be focused on legal. Moving on to cultural sustainability. The principle of Ubuntu will be implemented to foster inclusivity and community resilience. The Ubuntu principle in leadership will enforce that leaders embody I am because we are, prioritizing collective success over individual gain. For example, a CEO who caps their salary at 5 times the lower paid worker, reinforcing solidarity. It will also be focused on community rituals and practices, whereby organizations embed cultural traditions into their operations. For example, weekly reflection circles whereby employees share stories and success, echoing African communal dialogue traditions. And we also integrate knowledge transfer whereby elders mentor younger workers, showing continuity of wisdom. For example, a cultural center whereby retired artisans train apprentices, sustaining heritage crafts while generating income. Ultimately, Ubuntu Net systems demonstrate that businesses can still succeed while prioritizing people, dignity, and community. Shows us that when workers are empowered and treated as co-owners rather than just employees, organizations can become more inclusive, innovative, and sustainable.
I've reached the end of presenting the business model, which is the Ubuntu Net system. Regarding that, we've decided to also elaborate more on traditional OB and small capital.
Small letter OB.
Yes, absolutely. With that being said, we're just gonna say some few points under that. The capital OB, as we have explained before, that it focuses on maximizing profits, keeping their lights at higher positions, while dehumanizing the laborers who put in the work. The small letter OB in this regard takes a different path, meaning it includes workers, it cares about their dignity. Also, it reflects their lived realities. It enforces their culture in the workplace. Everyone is included. So, this model that we have built reflects that. And yeah, that's basically all of it. And I don't know if my colleagues want to add something on what I just said.
Yeah, adding on to that point, as you mentioned, without capital letter OB, it focuses more on profit, and then OB talks. We take that route because it doesn't micromanage the laborers. We let our labor be because we employ them, because we trust and we have a full trust that they can do the job without being micromanaged and be civilized so that they can just be free and do their work freely. So yeah, that's all that I wanted to add.
On that also, this is why it is better to apply the small letter OB in the workplaces. It is better in that way, and you can see that this model it cares about workers. It does not see them just as tools that you can use them and then throw them away after you are down. It appreciates them, it adds value to them, and it appreciates them. And yeah, so that's why we say that this OB is the better one, and it applies to our model. Yes.